What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-host, Colin Alcabes. Will's not here to eat his pizza. I'm so sad. Yesterday's episode was a little chaotic. So if you guys haven't seen that, make sure you go back. We were just flaming Will for 10 minutes. It's the roast of Will Cohen. But me and Colin are back today to talk about some free agency. We still got a month. We got all of June left to go before free agency opens up. But there is a lot of work to be done for the Rangers. I'm sure this will not be the only free agency upload that we make throughout the next month. We're going to talk about the defense today, some options out there that will be free agents come July 1st that we think the Rangers should look into potentially signing. So we're going to get right on into that. But before we do, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell to miss notification, leave your thoughts down in the comment section below, and be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. But Colin, my good friend, how are you doing today? And who's the first player that you would like to talk about?
I'm doing better. I wish the Knicks had won last night. Otherwise, I'd be doing fantastic. Otherwise, not too shabby. And we'll get right into it here. We'll start with the more exciting option for me, the one that I would rather us go for and prioritize this offseason. It's going to be Vladislav Gavrikov. I know he's not the guy in the graphic below. 29-year-old left defenseman, 6'3", 220, looking for that size that we've lacked for so long on the defense. And a guy that you can look to pair with Adam Fox, should you be able to get him. Obviously, I think I threw his stats in the chat if you want to go over those real quick.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the stats you said. Now, Gavrikov, he plays for the Kings. I'm familiar with most of the NHL. When we go all the way out west like that, teams the Rangers don't play against that often, my knowledge does fade a little bit. So I'm not an expert on Gavrikov. I'm not going to lie. But looking at his stats, it's pretty impressive. 5 goals, 25 assists for 30 points on the year. He's not a crazy offensive defenseman, but as you mentioned, put him with Adam Fox. We don't need to worry about the offense there. Fox has that covered. We need a good defensive guy. And he was a plus 26 on the season. So defensively solid. And, for the Kings, they made the playoffs, pretty good team, but, they're not top of the league Stanley Cup contenders. So putting up numbers like that on just like a first round exit kind of team, still pretty impressive. I like that. I like the size that you mentioned. Fox, smaller guy, not a hitter really, doesn't really do all the gritty work. That's why I like Lindgren with Fox back when we had him, because Lindgren did put in that work and made the physical plays. Ever since we traded Lindgren, haven't really had that with Fox. And I think that kind of did bring Fox's potential down, because he's out there trying to do 10 different things at the same time without a suitable defensive partner. So to me, a guy like Gavrikov, I like the stats, I like the numbers, and I like the age, 29 years old. And we were just briefly talked about it before we hit record. If we were to sign a guy like Gavrikov, make it a big deal, make it a 7 or 8 year signing, get that AAV as low as possible, and potentially sign him for the rest of his career. He's still in his 20s. He has time to continue to excel at defense without falling off a cliff when he gets older. So I like it. I think I agree with you. Out of the two players we're going to talk about, obviously the other one you can see on the graphic, who it's going to be. He is my top choice as well, because this defense needs some work. And when I think of the work that needs to be done, is Gavrikov going to single-handedly fix it? No, but it is a phenomenal step in the right direction. It's a leap in the right direction, really. So I like it, but if there's anything more that you want to add about Gavrikov, feel free, or you can just introduce us into our next guy.
The only reason why, and both of the defensemen we're going to talk about are going to be left defensemen, obviously, because the left side of the defense has been a problem for quite some time now, and it's been something that they've yet to address. We kind of hoped Miller would take that next step. He hasn't. I know they signed Vakanainen, but I have no interest in playing him on a daily basis. So, there's not really a whole lot to love on the left side right now. And Gavrikov's coming off of a smaller deal, 2 years, making $5.875. Obviously, I think he's due for a little bit of a bump. But like I said, if you get those years up, I don't know that I'd do a full 8. I'd probably do like a 5 or 6 at around 6. I think I'd do a 6 by 6. I'd be comfortable doing that. Obviously, you'd have to throw in, I'm sure he'd get a no move clause from Drury and everybody would hate that. There's some sort of clause is going to be worked out. I don't know what it's going to be, but there's always something these days.
Drury loves handing those things out.
I don't know that I agree that he should do that. I know whatever it takes to bring the average down for this guy. If you can get him on a similar deal for a longer term, which I don't think he would do, but if you can, that'd be phenomenal. Just because, in his brief sample size in the league, obviously he was drafted by Columbus, played relatively well there, all things considered. a team that hasn't been good for a long time, and he was barely minus. I mean, he was -3, -8, and then he went to the Kings. And he's been positive ever since. He's a positive 24 in his career. And 4 years in Columbus, you tend to be a career negative. So the fact that he's positive is a very, very good thing. So yeah, I'm very excited. I hope that is a player that they pursue heavily. Just because I was talking about it last night on my way to the Knicks game in the city as a watch party, and I was saying how the Rangers decor hasn't been solid since our last run. I don't think we've had a good run since Kevin Klein retired. We let Anton Strawman walk. Del Zotto left, and then Girardi and Stahl fell off a cliff just because of age and injury, and then we traded McDonough, and we got Keith Yandel and Dan Boyle to replace them, and it was never the same. So you have to start by building this decor back up. I think our offense is fine. I think the defense is really what they need to focus on, which is why we're doing this episode. So for the next player, obviously everybody knows who he is. We see him on the graphic below. We're going to talk about Dmitry Orlov. He's a little bit older, 33 years old. Again, a left shooting defenseman, 5'11", 214. So he's not massive, but he's a lot bigger than a lot of the guys that we have on that left side still. I don't know. You want to go over the points real quick?
Yeah. I'll just say, first of all, don't ever disrespect Dan Boyle again. He was great for the Rangers, just a little old. But anyways, yeah, Dmitry Orlov, I think he's the type of guy where he'd be a good backup option. Do everything you can if you're Chris Drury to go out and get Gavrikov. If he stays with LA or signs elsewhere, be a little upset about it, but don't be too upset because Dmitry Orlov is a pretty solid option as well. You mentioned he's a little bit older. He's 33, right? Was what we said. So this isn't the type of player we're going to sign long-term, like we were saying, 6 or 7 years like we would with Gavrikov. I'm thinking maybe a 2 or 3 year deal if you're going out and signing Orlov. And he has 6 goals, 22 assists for 28 points this past season. Obviously, he made it all the way to the conference finals. So we know that it's a team effort to make to the conference finals. But from what I watched in that series, he played pretty well. He's a playoff performer. And he was a plus 16 on the year in the regular season as well. To me, like you said, kind of a similar play style to Gavrikov. Everything that I said and praised Gavrikov for, I could repeat myself and say the same thing for Orlov. I just think really the thing that makes him different is that age. So you're not going to sign him for as long, and you might get him for a little bit cheaper. You mentioned Gavrikov possibly going for maybe $6 million annually. I might even think he would go a little higher just because of that increase in cap that we've been seeing and the way it's projected to keep going. I think he can maybe even go as high as 7, possibly 8 if he's feeling greedy, solely because of that increase in cap. Orlov, on the other hand, because of that age, because of the term that it's going to be, maybe we're looking at 3 or 4 million for 2 or 3 years, and I would be more than happy with that. We have a lot of free agents that we're going to need to sign this season and in the coming seasons, and whatever other moves we're going to make. Like I said, this isn't going to be the only free agency signing, hopefully. So whatever we do here with the defense, we do need to always remember what the other work that needs to get done. With Orlov, you can comfortably sign him to whatever he's going to want and still have enough money to do other things. Whereas Gavrikov might be a little bit more expensive and might make other moves a little bit harder to pull off. But like I said, Gavrikov's my number 1. Orlov, I'd be very comfortable signing him as a second option. So I like it personally. I wouldn't mind either of these. I think they'd both be great moves. But I'll let you share your opinion.
Honestly, I like Orlov coming off of a 2-year, $7.75 million deal with the Hurricanes. Obviously, he had a lot of time before that with the Capitals. He's experienced a lot of playoff runs. He knows what it takes. He's a Stanley Cup champion. That also adds a little cup pedigree that you're looking for. He's just a guy who plays with a lot of grit. I remember when he was in the Capitals, I hated this guy just because he was very, very good at what he did. And he's just another option for a guy who can go out there and you can trust in shutdown minutes, I think. Now, for me personally, obviously I'd rather Gavrikov. You said it, I said it. I'd like to try and get both these guys if possible, because
that would be nice.
Dmitry Orlov, at this point in his career, I don't think he's a first pairing guy anymore. I definitely think he's a high end second pair, and if somehow you could get him on your third and you have somebody better than him, then that'd be crazy. But I think he's a good middle pairing guy. I think Gavrikov is a top pairing guy. Orlov, just because of his age, I do think that the money comes down a little bit. Like I said, 2 years, 7.75 last year. I think he gets down to 5. I'm hoping. And I know Gavrikov, I definitely lowballed. I want to get him at 6.5, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're right. It's more in the 7 range. But if you can find a way to get both these players, I mean, you're looking at a decor of Fox and Gavrikov, Borgen and Orlov, and then you can run Schneider and Miller as your last pair. Or you can.
Well, I was also going to mention before you continue, bear in mind that Keandre Miller is a free agent this year. So I feel like getting both of these guys, Orlov and Gavrikov, is definitely possible. But I don't know if you'd also be able to retain.
That's fair.
Miller.
Well, then you have guys like, I don't know if Zach Jones is a free agent. I think he is.
I think he is, but obviously he'd be a lot cheaper to maintain.
You also have Vakanainen you can play on either side. Really, I don't think it makes that much of a difference for him. And you still have Carson Susio. I know a lot of people hate, and that's fair. He played pretty bad this year.
Yeah, that's a valid take. Valid crash out.
But you give him a real partner, maybe. I don't know. The decors, the whole thing was just in shambles last year. I don't think anybody on the decor played well. So I'm kind of taking last year and throwing it away and seeing what happens this year. Just because Susie was a good player with the Kraken, he was a solid player with the Canucks, and then he fell off a cliff once he got to us. So I don't think there's no reason that he can't bounce back like the rest of this team. Everybody's due for a bounce back, so we'll see. But I don't know. I think I look at this team and the forwards for me, they look good. I mean, I like a lot of what we have here. The defense is nauseating, and that's why I think that has to be the biggest plan here. You have to be able to help out your star goaltender. I know you're paying him a lot of money, but you have to be able to help him out. We can't do what we did with Hank, where we give him a shit decor year after year after year, and we say, all right, figure it out. You gotta provide some defensive support, especially after the season we just had. You gotta bring in some guys who know how to lock down top players on other teams. That was our biggest problem against the Panthers a couple years back. That was our biggest problem against the Devils the year prior to that. The biggest problem against the Lightning. Obviously, their star players showed up, and we had no answer defensively. So I think that has to change. Because, like I said, I haven't been confident in this decor probably since the mid 2010s. So.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think either of these guys, hopefully both, would make great additions to the Rangers. But you guys watching, let us know how you would feel if Chris Drury went out and signed these two guys down in that comment section below. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell to miss notification. We'll be back with some more off-season content soon. So until then, have a good one, and let's go Rangers.
Rangers.
Ooh, I did an outro today. We made it.